Context is everything when it comes to interpreting Scripture. Taking passages out of context is frequently a good way to go wrong, but not always. Sometimes a passage that speaks to one context can help us understand a very different context. Nowhere is this more evident than passages about love. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Monday, June 6th, 2022. I've been thinking a lot about love lately. Perhaps it's because I've performed a couple of weddings in the past 2 weeks, including the wedding of our older daughter and her husband. There are certain biblical texts that we frequently use during weddings, but if we pay close attention to their context, they're usually not about marriage at all, but about love within the Christian community. Which obviously begs the question, if the passages we often read during weddings aren't about marriage, do they even belong in wedding services? This week, I want to explore some of the most familiar passages we read at weddings and try to get a sense of whether they are truly appropriate for that setting, and if so, what they have to say. If you've heard it once, you've heard it 1,000 times in weddings. I'm talking, of course, about perhaps Paul's most quoted chapter, 1 Corinthians 13. Just in case you've forgotten it, he says, "If I speak in the tongues of humans and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions and hand over my body so that I may boast but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part. Then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love remain, these three, and the greatest of these is love." Beautiful passage, tailor-made to read at weddings, except for one thing. Paul wasn't writing about love between spouses. He wasn't even writing about love as a feeling. In fact, he's writing about love within the Christian community, and he's writing it to a group of people who, frankly, were at war with one another. The church in Corinth was a famously quarrelsome group. Filled with spiritual pride, different factions within the church claimed to be superior to all other factions. Paul knew that a church divided like this not only would not last very long, worse still, its ability to witness to Jesus Christ was severely limited. Into this fractious bunch, Paul lobs an impassioned plea to work towards unity. He takes several approaches in this letter, but this chapter cuts to the heart of things. He explains love to them, in this case, agape love, one of the Greek words we translate as love. He explains what it does, and as importantly, what it refrains from doing. In the end, it's all about helping people value each other in spite of their differences. The irony is that we use this passage, written to people who are at each other's throats, in the context of weddings, a place where we're thinking about anything but conflict and division. But I happen to think it is remarkably useful in this setting. It reminds us that within the bond of marriage, conflict is inevitable. It's bound to arise, and left unchecked, spouses can become like the Corinthians, those warring factions. A reminder of what love is, not romantic love, but agape love, is absolutely appropriate. It is a reminder that although wedding ceremonies are romantic events, the often difficult business of living together in marriage requires more than simply romantic feelings. It requires will, and it requires the kind of love that has the power to overcome differences. When we return tomorrow, we'll look at words from 1 John, perhaps the next most quoted passages in weddings. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.